Hey everybody, Brandon here. I want to go over a section of the entitlement process that a lot of people don't seem to understand. So this whole video is going to be about the entitlement process and managing risk, because these are the two probably most popular questions that we get. Hey, what is the entitlement process to take a piece of raw land, get it approved for a new community? And Brandon, how do I manage the risk? So I picked out a couple little spots right here. Let's go down to this. So this is the entitlement flow chart right here. Now, important to know that different areas are going to require some nuances here, but this is generally what you're going to see. Of course, how things are done in California are going to be a little bit different than how things are done over here in like Tennessee. So I'm going to walk you through the process here in Tennessee, but once you have the rough outline, then you'll have a pretty good idea of what to expect, no matter where you are in the United States. Again, there's some nuances because California might have like some fire stuff that needs to be done. The neighborhood needs to be designed with like the fireproofing and stuff in design. Florida might have some like flooding stuff with the engineering. So the engineering is going to change a little bit, but you don't need to know that. Okay, so a lot of this we're going to lightly touch on some engineering stuff, but what I want you to know is that's the engineering job. If you go hire somebody to build your house, you do not need to know everything there is to know about HVAC or carpentry or whatever. In fact, the builder probably doesn't need to know or doesn't know as much about like electricity or HVAC, right? He hires the subs to do that. And so that's what you do is you find the right people to design the community for you and take it through. And a civil engineer is a big part of that. So I don't want you getting caught up in the weeds about, oh my gosh, I need to understand hydrological reports and stormwater and all that. You don't need to, right? That's what the civil engineer's for. All right, so let's start from the very beginning here. Here is the process that we use to help mitigate risk. It all starts with the concept plan. So you can see from the beginning right here, we have the concept plan. We want to get a verbal from the city. And we literally take that concept plan and it looks something like this right here. It's very basic. Notice how basic this is. So we can go to a civil engineer. We tell them about the property. They look up the zoning and everything. We explain what we're trying to achieve. They create this concept plan. We then take that concept plan to the city. And if they say, yeah, this is something we're excited about, like you should spend the time to submit this, like we want this is aligned with what we want, then we take that concept plan to a builder and we get an offer from a builder like the one that you see right here. And if we like the offer from that builder, if it is higher than what we have it under contract for, if we've done our underwriting right, then we move forward. That's it. Concept plan, city, buyer, done. Take it through. The next step is you are going to submit for what's called a tentative map or a preliminary plat. So it exchanges terms. It's the same thing. But what this essentially is the city might say, hey, I like your concept plan, but we need to make sure that this is feasible for the community. Right? Because if you're designing this on like the side of a cliff or something crazy, like they're not going to approve it, right? So they're going to ask for some light engineering to be done. So this is the spot where there's some like a light grading plan that, the engineer might go and, shoot a little bit of topography or something like that. The city might require a traffic study like, oh, wow, this is a big development. There's going to be a lot of additional cars on the road. Is this going to impact traffic? Depending on how big the development is. If it's smaller, probably won't ask for something like this. And they might ask for a hydrological study like, hey, how's the water going to move around it? Again, you don't need to know anything about this. This is what the civil engineer does. And you don't need to do this if the city is not asking for it. And what they're going to produce is what's called a preliminary plat. So you can see the difference between this basic concept plan and this preliminary plat right here. So this has some light engineering done. You can see it's, honestly, I'm not even a pro on how to read these things, but there's some engineering that has been done to it, right? Like a little bit of analysis of the property. And this is what you are going to submit for your preliminary plat. This is the big approval, right? This is once you submit and you've got some light engineering done and they have approved your preliminary plat. That means they said, hey, we want this development, right? Like, congratulations, it is approved, contingent on us seeing the civil drawings. So it's like the city approving a house to be built on a piece of land, but they need to see what the house design is, right? They want to make sure that the house isn't built too close to the other houses for fire code and stuff like that. It's not a few feet from the power lines, right? Like, a house can be built there, the community's approved. They want to see the civil drawings. Now, the civil drawings, think of it like this. In order to build a house, you need architectural plans. Well, in order to develop a piece of land, you need civil drawings. The civil drawings show the slope of the roads, where the sewer goes, the water. It's literally the architectural plans that go like underneath the ground. So think of civil drawings like that. And this is where your civil engineer comes in. So, at this point, we make sure, we like to be under contract, with a builder. We want to have our buyer lined up to exit this. And your civil drawings are what are getting designed at this point. Now, what does civil drawings look like? Well, there's a lot to them. And again, you don't need to understand or how to read those. That's the engineer's job. But it basically shows the whole design of the property, how the water is going to flow around the community. He does his hydrological studies, the slope of the road, how high it is from the front and back to the property, how high it is from the right to the left of the property, how the grading is set up. All this stuff is the civil drawings. And again, you do not need to know how to do that. That's the engineer's job. So let them do that. Now, once you have your civil drawings approved, that is huge because the engineer is going to submit those civil drawings. The city has their own internal department that analyzes these civil drawings to make the community safe. Now, think about the entitlement like this. One of the reasons that America is so amazing, and you'll realize that if you've traveled to other countries and third world countries, is because we have this entitlement process. We have these beautiful neighborhoods. The neighborhoods work. The sewage works. The water works. Houses don't get flooded that often, believe it or not, compared to other countries. And it's because we have this approval process. So I want you to think of the city, and the city's job is they have different departments that were created to make sure the community was safe. And so each one of those departments has to analyze and approve the development, right? So the entitlement is getting all the approvals from all those different departments, including the city's own internal civil engineering team. Like the fire department has to bless it. It's got to make sure that the homes have enough fire hydrants, every so far from each house so the hoses reach. Public Works has to look at it to make sure there's roads and sidewalks and all that's good. The curb and the gutter has proper drainage. Stormwater has to look at it to make sure that there's not going to be flooding or anything. The water goes around the homes and no one's going to die. The city civil engineering department needs to look at it to make sure everything is put together right. So your civil engineer and them are going to go back and forth. And once you have all the approvals from the city's department, then you have an approved drawing. Congratulations. Now, it's not over yet. So once the city or the county, whichever one it's in, has approved it, then it goes to the state. And the state, it might have different requirements, right? In Tennessee, the state is looking at it for one main thing, and that is the stormwater prevention plan. So it's called a SWIP, SWPP. Here in Tennessee, now in California, there might be like a fire plan, like fires are a problem in California. We don't have that here in Tennessee. So it's going to go to the state. The state's going to look at the plans, and then the state is going to say, hey, yes, this is good. We like it. Or they're going to send some feedback and say, no, we deny it. You need to change this. And the civil engineer might have to make some tweaks at that point. So once you have your SWIP in hand, and that looks like this. So here you go. This is what a approval looks like from the state. Then you're literally almost like ready to rock and roll at that point. You can go and pull your grading permit and you can start moving dirt, or you can sell the property. You can again close on it. And again, what we like to do, we put the property under contract contingent on getting the outcome we want. So we do this work while it's under contract, and we have our buyer lined up, and then when it's approved, the buyer just buys it. So that's how it works. That's the whole process here. And, we've got it split off where you can just sell the paper, or if you want to develop the lots, there's a little bit there. So that's the entitlement process. That's how we manage risk. If you do these things, then a lot less likely you're going to lose money.